No,
Okay,
estoy
so
aquí.
let's start. Welcome to this Communities for Future session, the 12th Communities for Future session. We have been doing these type of sessions for more than a year. And today we're going to be talking about the power of localization, exploring transformative community-led initiatives. This session has been prepared collaboratively by a team. We will later present it. And it's a pleasure to have you here. So let's start by sharing this. Today we have three very special guests: Filka, Sekulova, Cristiano Bottone, and Ad Vlems, that later we'll have some time to talk to them. And this is a session organized by ECOLISE. ECOLISE is the European Network for Community-Led Initiatives on Climate Change and Sustainability, with 46 members already in 23 European countries. And what we do is, of course, directly connected to localization, to work at community level, to develop local action and foster this type of activities for climate change and sustainability. We work at different levels, at the research and learning level, at the action level, at advocacy level, network development, etc. And as an organization, we have been working since already almost 9 years old. Yeah. So I want to be quick with the introduction to have more time with everyone. Let's go to the next slide. And as I said, this is part of the Communities for Future sessions. That is one of our key activities. We hold these monthly online meetings, spaces, to learn about different things interesting for our network, enabling networking and learning for a fair and regenerative world. And this, especially this session, is a partnership together with the World Localization Day. That is an event, an international event happening around the world through the month of June, that wants to celebrate the worldwide localization movement and to explore together the power of localization and to honor and celebrate those thousands of initiatives, old and new, that foster these ecological, economic, and ecological alternatives, thriving communities and healthy local food systems. So we decided to devote specifically this session to this topic together with them. This session is going to be focused mainly on these points. So we're going to explore what do we mean by localization and why is that localization important? What type of localization and how ECOLISE and its wider network, the community-led initiatives, contribute to this transformative localization. We will see that there are different types of localization and what type of localization we are working to. And then, of course, we will have space to share inspiring stories, resources, and ideas to support local action. The session will be structured basically in a roundtable with our three special guests. Then we will have a short presentation by two of our ECOLISE colleagues about two specific examples of how ECOLISE is promoting localization. And then we will have a space of breakout to explore together how to better collaborate to foster local action. And finally, we'll have a closing. So that's more or less the structure. So that's the summary. Fit, I want first to, before passing to Sarah for the check-in, I'd like to present the team that is involved in this session. So myself, I'm Juan del Rio, based in Barcelona. I've been in ECOLISE already for, well, as a member since the beginning and as part of the staff for 3 years and a half. I'm currently one of the two co-directors. And I'm here together with Sarah Silva. So Sarah is in Portugal. and we have been both of us co-designing this session, and we will be co-facilitating this session. Also Laura Castelle, she's our network weaver in Germany. She will be also supporting in the facilitation. And then we also have Nina Klein, part of the team, policy lead. She will be also doing a short presentation. And finally, that we will talk a little bit more about them, Ad, Cristiano, and Filka, our three special guests. So this is a collaborative effort. And I think it's always super important when we have this type of sessions to try to connect with each other a little bit, try to know who is here. No? So I'm going to pass it to Sarah, and we have prepared a short check-in for you.
Thank you, Juan. Hello, everybody. So let's get to know a bit who is here, and also what's bringing you here, what motivated you to come to this session. And for that, it would be nice if you could rename yourselves, like with your organization, country, and also since we are quite a few, you can also do a short, give a short hello in the chat. And I'm going to ask you also to follow. We have this Mentimeter question, so we can get a visual sense of what motivates you to come to the session. So if you please can and follow this link, you will get 2 questions. So the first question is, in one word, what's the first thing that comes to you when you hear the word localization? I'm going to show my screen. Okay, we have some results coming up. Some words. Globalization antidote. We have community in the center, collaboration, resilience, connection, resources. On the periphery, we have characteristic, life, common sense, diverse, close. So very, very, very clear, simple, human words that come. Necessary, movement, living together, fun. It's always important that this is a joyful process, and definitely localization supports that. Top down, closeness, land connection, appropriate. And we also have this second question for you. So we'd like to know if you are involved in any transformative local action. And if yes, which one? So obviously we have Boekel Ecovillage. One of the guests, special guests, is representing this ecovillage. Nature, villages. You can also put some links in the chat if you have to your projects. There's a comment with many transformative local actions. I imagine that's the case for most of us. Usually who is involved in localization is not only involved in one project. That's true. That's like a pattern. Local transition town, publication, food festival, ECOLISE. Someone sharing, living in a cooperative space. Okay. Still have community and resilience at the center. So I think we have a good sense. Teaching local transformation toolkits, culture, creating a social space, intergenerational connection, hangout. So quite a wide variety of projects, which is going to be interesting to hear about them in the breakout groups. So I think this is good for a check-in.
Thank you, Sarah.
Let's go to you, Juan. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. So we are 24 people, all of us super engaged, super involved in different local action initiatives. That's great. I think there's a lot to learn from each other. And I'm going to share with you on the chat a link to a presentation. This is a presentation that we have used so far and that we will be using through the whole day. So this, like this, you can have access. Also in the breakouts, we will be using it to take notes. Okay, so each breakout will be using it, and we will share it again afterwards. But like this, you already have it. So let's go with the round table. Okay, with that space to have a little bit of conversation to frame this topic. This is a topic that we have heard many times. No, why local? What's localization? What type of localization? And why to promote this type of movement? No? So we have the pleasure to have with us today Ad Vlems. I don't know if that's a pronunciation. Sorry, Ad, with your surname, but Ad Vlems. He is one of the initiators of Boekel Ecovillage in Netherlands. He's part of the Netherlands global, the Netherlands network, and part of ECOLISE too. So he has a lot of experience in localization with the Ecovillage movement. Cristiano Bottone, he's co-developer of the local transformation toolkit that previously was called Municipalities in Transition. He has a lot of experience in the transition towns movement for almost 15 years or more, and he works with transition process for a long time. And Filka Sekulova, well, Cristiano is based in Italy, as you may guess for the name. And Filka Sekulova, she's originally from Bulgaria, but living in Barcelona, Spain for a very long time. And she's an expert she's an activist and researcher, an expert in degrowth. She's part of the Research and Degrowth organization and many others working on this topic. So the three of them are part of the wider ECOLISE network that have been collaborating with ECOLISE in different ways. And it's great to have you here today with us. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I just want to share that with you. So welcome to the three of you. And the title of this session and this discussion is about the power of localization. You can already see when you looked at the words that they were shared by all of you at the beginning with what it brings localization to us, that is something that is very present in what we do, in our type of movements. If we look at the current systemic crisis, it seems relatively clear that the future, whether we like it or not, is going to be more local. But what type of localization do we want? No? And how to foster that type of localization that can be more fair, just, ecological, etc., etc. So let's try to explore these questions with you now. And let's start with Filka. So Filka, first of all, thank you so much for being here with us. And Filka, how would you define localization? What's localization and why is it important for this wider societal transformation?
Thanks so much, Juan, for the invitation and for bringing me along here. And actually, what's localization? I'm not sure it's really worth sticking to one single definition of localization, because I'm sure that all of you here would have very good grip of what is localization. And its importance. But I was thinking that perhaps one thing that I could bring into the discussion, which is like not overly repeated, has to do with what do we need to consider when we speak about localization. So first, would like to point out that it's kind of hard to talk about localizations in a world which is kind of continuously accelerating, speeding up, and urbanizing continuously. And so, because we live in a moment when space and time are being compressed in a way by basically pushed by capitalist logic. So where is the local? Where is the place? How do we retain, in the words of Doreen Massey, the sense of place? And where is the place? Because at times, the very idea of localism can be associated with, let's say, defensive, conservative, reactionary responses, some forms of nationalism as well. So for that reason, localization could sometimes be criticized, but at the same time, seeking localization and basically the sense of place could also be, can also be progressive and not self-envisioning, and somehow could be open, outward looking, and embracing differences. So because one thing is sure, place and localities and localization are not, and the localization process are not represented by homogeneous, sanitized communities or equally minded individuals, no? So as Doreen must say, that I kind of one of the reference people for me who speak about localization from a very broad perspective. She says that places or locations do not have single unique identities, but they're full of inherent differences and conflicts. So basically, each place has a mix of various social relations. Some are very local and others are very international, translocal, and they jointly produce the place, and they jointly produce the space as well. And they have, together with the accumulated history of multiple layers, linkages. So what I meant to say with this kind of initiation of the talk is that we need not idealize the local as the single place where transformation could happen, but still kind of not sentence it as a kind of as irrelevant for kind of social transformation, but we need to kind of consider the diversities and the kind of multiple subjectivities that are there embedded in the local, and the local cannot be perceived in disentangled way from the global as well, from the global struggles. And perhaps shall I move on to the next question now? How is it relevant from a degrowth perspective, and why?
Yeah, please.
Well, let's speak about that. So I've been arguing for a while that we need to perhaps bring the environmental social conflicts closer to our backyards, in front of our eyes, in front of our minds, closer to our hearts, because there we could rework these conflicts and they could be somehow resolved in a kind of in better way. For example, rather than just in the nickel mines of Indonesia and Philippines, or in the lithium mines of Bolivia, Australia, Chile, and Argentina. So localization, let's say, from a degrowth perspective, is a way to democratize our social metabolism. Basically, the urban, semi-urban, or includes urban, rural social metabolism. And by social metabolism, by radicalizing, radically transforming our social metabolism and radically thinking of all the materials and inputs, energies, bodies, resources that flow into our localization, our localities. And this means that we need to democratically deliberate on the strategies that actually serve our needs. And we need to kind of see in what way these strategies are actually compatible with issues of social justice and environmental justice, basically, and good life for all, not only kind of anthropocentrically speaking. So basically, we all know that this could only be achieved by addressing poverty and deprivation, by the provision of universal basic services, for example, from a degrowth perspective, and various types of commons and commoning. So these deliberative processes, what do I mean by these, on these deliberative processes and how we serve our needs? They imply some sort of democratic establishment or community-based establishment of our own limits. basically limits within which we as humans and non-humans could actually collectively flourish. So I'm talking about the collective self-limitation and openness to difference as the two baseline fundamental features of any intentional localization process, basically. So the central feature of autonomy implies working less, recognizing reproductive work and care work, along with preserving nature and curtailing accumulation. So in practical terms, this would basically means, and here I kind of go into the practice of localization, means orienting our economies towards non-for-profit entities and a small-scale or community-based social solidarity economy, which are, and this is kind of already proved in the literature and requires a little bit more research, but it's very likely that if we shift to, let's say, community-based production, social solidarity economies, these are very likely to have much lower energy and ecological footprint and contribute better actually to social justice. Shall I finish? Is my time over?
It's okay. I mean, one more minute.
Well, okay. So fine, yeah. Our bet is that as well, we cannot, but also it's not all. Again, it's not about downscaling production, but it's also kind of confronting the logic of capital accumulation and its structure dynamics, and particularly fossil fuel capital. And by confronting accumulation, this means that we need to think of all the capital invested in unsustainable infrastructure, all the capital invested in unburned, non-extracted oil, gas, fuel, etc., and confronting actually locally phenomena like the Winter Olympic Games, advertising, high-speed transformation. For example, the Formula One racing space that we have just around Montmeló here in close to Barcelona, fast fashion, financial industry, etc., a bunch of other industries. So in that sense, localizing transformative degrowth will not be a smooth process. It will imply kind of hardcore metamorphosis at multiple scales and overcoming somehow the imperial mode of living. And so then from a localization perspective, degrowth is imagined as a form of open localism, that enhances international solidarity along with kind of rethinking consumption and provisioning, enhances climate and colonial reparations, strengthening indigenous land rights as well. So then local initiatives and localization somehow correspond and coordinate with aspirations and strategies moving from the global south and continually building alliances. So localization, so thinking of localizations in the north together and jointly with localizations in the south, both in the south and in the north, and somehow seeing how we build on each other's cosmovisions and the so-called myriad of pluriverse initiatives that confront development-based thinking and progress.
Yeah. Thank you, Filka, for opening the conversation with this open perspective. The need of confronting initiatives that confront the globalization and capitalism, together with initiatives that are more at the local level, creating specific alternatives, the local and the global, the combination between social justice and sustainability, working at different scales, the north and the south, how everything is linked, and what's the role of all these parts, how to do it collaboratively. So I'd like to maybe jump to the next question with one of our other special guests, and then we will have time to start linking the different questions and continue with also with you, Filka. So Cristiano, I think it connects very well to what already Filka explained. So I'd like you to explore with us, from your experience and perspective, what type of localization do we need or we should envisage? Because not every type of localization could work, taking into account the systemic crisis that we are facing. And what's the right scale? Because when we talk about localization, we make a direct reference to the scale where we work. So in your view, what's the right scale for systemic change?
Yeah, probably in a perfect world, we would see things happening at the same time at every level. And with this incredible possibility to take in account all the differences, as Filka was saying, every space, every community, every physical area is different. Sometimes even if you move 10 kilometers from one place to another, the scenario is completely different. So what you can do, what you should do, what is meaningful can change at a big scale, really. So we would like to see things reorganized at very, very local level. But at the same time, if we want to keep a certain level of development in the good sense of our human organizations, if we want to have hospitals, if we want to have basic services, if we want to have the chance to support each other, for instance, we have to pay attention to move every process at the right scale. So we have things that can be very local in your backyard, basically, things that maybe we should keep regional, things that are better at national level, international level, global level, and so on. And be so clever to imagine this way to reorganize everything. So what's the problem? This is incredibly tricky because we are not working from a situation where everything is possible. It's completely the opposite. Everything is already organized in a certain way. So maybe at personal level or at the scale of small groups, we can really imagine to have a good possibility to move the way we want, if we are brave, if we find in ourselves the energy to do it. But then when you start moving up in the levels of our system are organized, you start to see how many things are blocked, how many things are so deeply connected to others that change is something huge. Because to change something that seems simple, you really have to move 10 level up and to change rules at EU level when you want to do something in your backyard. So that's very tricky, and that's why this idea of learning from all the different experiments we did. I mean, we are not anymore, unfortunately, in the 70s, where there was a possibility, at least, there was the potential to manage transformation with a lot of resources, a lot of possibilities. This is a completely different time. Everything is already happening. Disasters are already hitting us in a very, very strong way. In my country at the moment, everyone is completely desperate. There's no water. We are losing all the crops. We don't have gas anymore because Putin is cutting the pipe. And it's a perfect storm, no? Suddenly, I mean, we knew that it was coming, but of course we stayed there without doing anything, basically. So this is a different time. We need a lot of adaptation. We need a lot of people and institution improvising. So the idea was to collect all the experiences coming from the scale of the eco-villages, the scale of many, many other different kind of experiment, and create a sort of operative system for our communities. this is interesting because what we discover slowly is that when you act locally with a very strong understanding of the rest of the system above you, you can really start to interfere with the rest of the system. So you can start from your backyard and having something approved in Brussels, for instance, because you start to build up this picture of the full scale, and you start to spot all the different knots. And very often you see where you should put your finger and press there, and you know you can't really get there. Not now, maybe it will be, but you know that one of the things you need to do sooner or later is to push there. And there will be that day where that button, that place, the right people is available. And if you're ready, this seems to be quite effective, because at the right moment, you already have a very well organized idea on how you could go into a process of transformation. So I think this is the kind of thing we can really try to do even now, even in a situation which is really, really bad, if you want, or if you like, preparing ourselves at every different scale to be ready to react as soon as the possibility become available. And we really have all the tools, the theory, the technology. We have everything we need. Probably the biggest problem I see, we are not ready for that. Very often we see ourselves concentrating on a single problem on a small scale, and of course it's natural and perfectly understandable, but we really should do this effort to move into this general vision, to be ready to act as soon as a possibility become available. Mm-hmm. And now is the time, because the system is very, very fragile. So there are many open, many doors that are opened now, or you just push a little bit and you can go in. So this is a good time for that.
Okay. So thank you, Cristiano. Despite the situation in which we are, with this message of trying to connect the different scales and act as soon as we can, taking the opportunities that we have, these open doors, as you mentioned. So let's go with Ad. So Ad, from your experience that is very long in the community-led initiatives, what do you think is the role of community-led initiatives in this localization process? How are eco-villages contributing to it? And if you can name some of the challenges and opportunities.
Yes, it's for community-led initiatives. It's important that they show that it's possible to live within the boundaries of what our Earth can provide, and even have a positive impact on our natural surroundings. And eco-villages have the possibility to, they are the pioneers that can start from scratch, because they almost always start in a new area and build their houses. And they can design that area to have a positive impact. And they need to do that in an inspiring way so others can follow. And if I just tell an example about our province has invested €2.5 million in Boekel Ecovillage. And at one point, someone asked them why. And the people from the province said, we want all of our people in our province to live as Boekel Ecovillage does in 2050. And in 2022, Boekel Ecovillage is already showing how to do that. So they are a showroom and a living lab. We've built 36 houses. They're just finished. We work a lot with nature and with ecosystem services, and we do that in a way that strengthens nature. We have hundreds of different crops to grow as our food, and with that there is a high biodiversity and a lot of flowers growing on different times, so that's beneficial for pollinators. We also try to make the soil much healthier, and we prevent soil erosion. We save drinking water by storing rainwater and using it in toilets, washing machines, and gardens. And we have constructed wetland to filter all of our wastewater and infiltrate it into the soil. So even when it's dry, like now in a lot of areas in Europe, our soil gets thousands of liters of water each day because of all the water that we use. Most of our building materials are bio-based, hemp, lime, wood, flax, cotton, and so they are now climate positive. They store 800 tons of carbon in them. And the rest of the building materials are 100% circular, and also some of them are really innovative. We've won 3 sustainable building awards last year, and I'm even asked in the jury to be in the jury of one of them, which is amazing because we only have one building project. We also have a direct current system that we're going to try out, and also a very innovative heating system in which we store the summer heat into a big cylinder of 400 cubic meters of waste, and that heats our houses for the rest of the year. So we don't have an electricity bill to heat our houses anymore. The biggest challenge eco-villages have is finance. And solidarity could be the opportunity that helps in solving that challenge. We've become part of Vrijkoop, which is an association of communities, and we have provided a way that all of our rent income that is left after the bank is paid off, that will go to the financing of other communities that start. So within 30 years, 40 years, we have hundreds of thousands of euros to spend each year on solving that challenge for other communities. In Germany, it's already being done for 30 years, and they have a big success. New communities sometimes leave the place with $1 million already financed without any interest. So it's already working. Another challenge is for most eco-villages is legislation. What we do is new, or it's really old, but at least it's not based on current legislation. And in the Netherlands, we have the Crisis and Recovery Act, which is a law that is only for innovative, sustainable projects. We are the only community-led initiative in that law, and you can get exemption from current laws. And when the project works well, then the general law is changed. And that way, already in the Netherlands, 26 laws have been updated with new things that were taken from the experience from these innovative projects. So it should be very interesting to have that law in each country. And I know that already in Italy, they're trying to do that too. Hopefully that will be done much more. We've written about it in the ECOLISE, the Communities for Future Policy paper, so you can read back what we said about that. Well, that are the most important challenges, I think, unless I hear others from you. We've gotten a lot of exposure. Already 17 directors of ministries came to our area to visit us and to learn from us. And even the EU has asked us to do the closing presentation on a symposium on circular economy. We've been 5 times on national TV, so millions of people saw our examples. We've been in books, magazines, newspapers, and even the worldwide Global Ecovillage Network has selected us the 3rd most influential ecovillage project last year. So I think it's important that ecovillages and other community-led initiatives inspire others to also live more sustainably and more localized.
Thank you, Ad. Thank you so much. So thank you to the 3 of you to open this conversation. Well, I have many questions for you, but I think it's quite nice if we can open also to the participants. And I'd like to invite the participants, if you have questions, please, we have right now like, well, I don't know, around about 10 minutes for questions from your side for the 3 participants. So please, you can ask for questions in the chat, and if they are led specifically to one of our participants, just let us know. Or we could also, maybe we could also hear their voice also. We can maybe see everyone's faces. And one moment. So is there any question? If not, I can do a question for them, but I just want to see.
I have one question.
Go, Alex.
I mean, it's coming. What I'm thinking is like regarding, like, I think it's expected many migrant movements due to climate change, and I was thinking about how may these solutions that here we are talking about, or like people's view of the presenters about migrant movements and how local movements may be I don't know, may bring some solution to that, or even and I don't want to sound bad, but like, is that an opportunity of like being able to welcome people and give them a home, and it's like that.
Okay, so I don't know, cool. Like Filka, maybe would you like to?
Yeah, just very quickly. This is why, like, I think the point that I was trying to put across is that for us, from localization has to be open and diverse. Otherwise, just it might reproduce the oppressive, violent dynamics of our system. So localization is there exactly to embrace from ethical standpoint, but also from to embrace migrant movements, aspirations, ways of being. And for example, what's very popular now in Spain, but also kind of think in Bulgaria and other places, just like opening your home to receive migrants. Actually, it's quite popular, but it's local and also kind of not so local. It's like a local global in a sense. It's where the local meets the global. And but also kind of, it's not only welcoming migrants in our homes, but it's a kind of contributing to international solidarity movement that creates spaces where migrants could feel at home, in the sense of making their own homes and constructing spaces where they could feel kind of residence. They could feel that they could take a root and rest from what they have been living through. And yeah, I think that there's kind of multiple spaces and multiple ways that this could be done, by kind of, I don't know, fundraising and donations going on, but also by creating first and before all spaces of listening and spaces of resonance, where stories can be shared and empathy can be built across. Because like for the local community, I'm not talking the diversity of the local community, because we talk about the local community, but in there we have so many different subjects and subjectivity. So I would start with creating space for encounters where we the locals could meet the new locals, the new coming locals, etc. I'm just like, I'll stop here and leave space for some other reflection. But thanks for that very important question, Alex.
Thank you so much, Filka. I don't know if Ad or Cristiano want to add something there. And if not, we'll go to the next one.
But briefly, this is going to happen. I mean, we know there will be millions, if not billions, of people moving from they are living now to somewhere else. So it's quite important to prepare ourselves, not only in the interpersonal level. I will have somebody in my, but the institutional level should be ready too, because again, their legislations, the way we organize our productivity in a wider sense, will be deeply modified. The welfare system will be revolutionized. There's a huge problem of equality in a direction and in another. Italy is one of the places where everyone arrives as a first step. In Europe, for instance, we have this big number of people going through the country, and yeah, this is a huge thing, and we should keep the huge thing into our mind all the time, because we need to prepare for that. We need to prepare for climate change as a local effect, but we need to prepare for migration. It will be huge.
Thank you, Cristiano. Do we go to the next question? Like this, we can have time for more. Thank you. So, Cheryl, I see your hand, so please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very intrigued by the discussion of understanding the larger systems within which localization works. You opened with that. And it came to mind during Mr. Vlems' presentation about the Ecovillage, that it was included or referenced in the national Netherlands government's Crisis and Recovery Act, which I think is a wonderful recognition of localization. My specific question is, can you point to one thing that moved that larger system to include you? What level of consciousness had your government reached that it could reach down to the level of your Ecovillage and say, this is important and of national interest?
Thank you, Cheryl. Ad, please.
Yeah, it's quite easy. It was just I went to a symposium on organized by the government, and one of the presentations was about the Ecovillage or about the Transition and Recovery Act, and I got to speak for a minute about the Ecovillage, and during the presentation of the government, they said, well, and that's interesting for the guy with the Ecovillage. So it's just going out there, talking to ministries and to people, because they're just people. And they also know that there is a transition going, and the innovative ones of them, they are the ones standing on the stage and talking. So it's just making contact.
Can I add something?
Please, Cristiano.
I think this is very important, because yeah, there's only people out there. I mean, some of them are horrible. It happens, no problem. But many of them are not. And very, very often you imagine that it's impossible to bring an idea or something new or something different. And it's not. Just try, just talk to them, talk to the person, not talk to the label on the door or to the charge or whatever. And very often, particularly now that the system is so fragile, you will find people understanding and maybe doing something about that. But sometimes no, sometimes you have corrupted people, sometimes you have criminals, but very often you have just good people trying to do something intelligent.
Thank
Can I add
Cristiano.
on?
Please,
Okay.
please go. Go.
No, I very much agree on that. Like, for example, when you speak about the state is so heterogeneous. It's kind of, it's not only the structures, it's just like composed of people and various sub-entities that work together. But Cristiano, when you were speaking, you're talking about you're speaking about the system is fragile and there are multiple openings. So I was wondering, why do you think the system is fragile? Because actually, what's with the multiple crises that we're seeing now in terms of the way, well, the military conflicts, the COVID pandemic, we didn't see fragile states, and we don't seem to be seeing fragile states now in positions when the world is militarizing. And I really want to hear a little bit more on that. And where do you see the points of system opening and the doors that you were saying? Kind of, yeah.
I don't know. Do we have time for this?
We can use a few more minutes. I think it's very interesting where we are, and time is flexible, but we don't have to.
Very briefly, everywhere in every human system, you will find different kind of people involved. And very often they have to follow the rules of the system, the rules of the box where they live. But particularly now, when all things are going so wrong, you can be sure that everywhere in the military, everywhere, there's somebody trying to change this. So if we start from the standing point where I say, no, those are all bad, the other one, they don't pay attention, you lose a possibility. Then very often it's difficult to have to see, but now you can do things that were completely science fiction 2 years ago. You can open discussion that were absolutely out of the game 6 months ago. So keep your mind open as a first step. So that's my suggestion, and you will see that there is fragility out there and possibilities more than anything else.
Ad, please.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that because what I always advise people, if you go to an organization, doesn't matter if it's governmental or it's just really big, call and ask for the innovation expert, because that is the one person in the organization that has a wider view. I once talked to the innovation expert of the water board, and he said, I have 1,000 colleagues, and if you would have called any other of them, they would have said no. But and he was very helpful during the rest of our process. So go to the innovation expert. They will help you because they know things have to change, and they can help you find the right people in their own organization and even be an ambassador for you.
So, thank you, Ad, Cristiano and Filka. Alex, I'm sorry, but we don't have much time right now for questions. But I would invite you to make your question when we will go to the breakouts, because if not, we will not have time for that. As I see Mika's hand. So, well, first of all, thank you so much to both Cristiano, Filka, and Ad. They will be in different breakouts, so you will have also a bit of time to continue these conversations. And this is really a very important conversation, the one we are starting right now. If we think about our future, we all see clearly that a transition to a different model is something that is happening. That is going to happen whether we like it or not. But it's in our hands to try to foster together a transition to our system that is fairer, that is more human, that is more connected to nature, that is healthier, and not a system that is more and more unfair. That is something that we could call ecofascism, you know. And if we look at the current situation, it seems that we're tending more and more towards that type of scenario. So yeah, I'm just want to name this because we are in a critical moment, and the role of community-led initiatives is crucial to showcase, you know, this innovation, that there's possibilities, And that's also what ECOLISE is trying to do, to mainstreaming all these innovative eco-social alternatives. And I'd like to pass to Sarah, to my colleague Sarah Silva. She's going to lead together with Nina the next 10 minutes. And they are both going to explain briefly how ECOLISE is contributing to what I like to say to call transformative localization. So not any kind of localization, but to a specific type of transformative localization. So please, Sarah, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juan. So ECOLISE is now working with this main action program. This was launched in 2020, the Communities for Future Action Program, and it gathers different approaches, let's say. One very much connected to communication, harvesting inspiring stories from our network and disseminating these stories, promoting these stories, also enabling action on the local level. There's also work done on the policy level and on knowledge commons, and all this to get to this vision and vision of having a widespread mainstreaming of regenerative and transformative community-led action on climate change and sustainability. So for now, Communities for Future, we have a few flagship projects. Somehow I cannot change the slide. Okay. These are flagship projects. So we have the European Day of Sustainable Communities that I'll be addressing briefly later. We have an annual event on policy, which is the Communities for Future Policy event, which this year will take place online in November. And within the European Day of Sustainable Communities, there's always regional policy events happening. We have these sessions where you are all participating, the Communities for Future session. These are monthly sessions on various topics and with different structures. Let's say some are more trainings, others are more just sharing stories, others are just spaces to connect. On the policy level, there's a focus on the CLLD, which stands for Community-Led Local Development, and there's a community of practice going on this topic, and Nina will also address it briefly. There's the CFF in practice, the Communities for Future in Practice, which is about understanding what communities of practice are out there and sharing their work and sharing the opportunities to connect with these communities of practice. And there's a planned event, an open space networking convergence, which should be happening in September and November. And yeah, just in general, you can follow our websites and sign up to our newsletter, and you'll be receiving information on this. And now I'd like to invite my colleague, Nina Klein. She's ECOLISE Policy Lead, to take us through this topic of community-led local development and the connection to the EU Green Deal. So Nina, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So basically what Cristiano said, and Filka and Ad Vlems as well, it's about connecting the big EU level. So you've talked about Brussels, Cristiano, and pushing the right buttons in Brussels. So it's about bringing and connecting the EU level with the local levels, because we are all part of a system. So it doesn't really exist as we're here and they're there. It's one system. So what the policy of ECOLISE aims to do this year is really to connect these two levels. And how do we want to do this? We will focus on an existing method. And it sounds a bit, CLLD is the acronym. It's Community-Led Local Development, which is an existing EU method which supports grassroots initiatives. So it's consists of local action groups that have formed throughout the EU. And our thinking is basically a bit like in permaculture. You observe what's happening, and this is a good thing happening within the EU. And we will focus on that and work with what we see. And could you change to the next slide, Sarah? Thank you. So the EU Green Deal is basically hopefully known to all of you. What one can observe is that it is not really known to many people because national media don't report on it, but it's basically the policy by the EU to have a planet which is livable for humans and for nature, so a good life within planetary boundaries. And it's actually a systemic view, and it is a paradigm shift in policies and globally the most ambitious policy around. Sarah, could you change the next slide? That's just to show you that it's about all the aspects of our lives, basically. And yes, if you go to the next slide, then the thinking is that what all of you, I think, sense and understand is that the system is one. The EU Green Deal, and that chimes very well in with what many of you said. You know, Ad, you said it's only people. If you knock on doors in the EU Commission or in the Parliament, you will find lots of enlightened people. So they are everywhere and the awareness is there. So what's needed now is ECOLISE thinking is capillary forces between the EU Green Deal, the root, the canopy, and the root, the grassroots initiatives, and connect the good stuff happening. And the next slide, please. Sarah, sorry. So LEADER and the community-led local development is a bottom-up approach, and in that it fits very well to grassroots level action because it's there to support this action. And it's happening within the EU cohesion policy. So there is a lot of funding also available, and the thinking is also obviously to enable grassroots initiatives to take part in this funding, but also to together change the EU Green Deal and make the regional and local development policies truly transformational. Because if you look around yourself, you will see that development now is defined as building roads, infrastructure, building. And the environmental part of sustainability, which is part of the leader and community-led local development approach. So they have a theoretically sustainable definition of sustainability, which is holistic, but in practice, environment is just not in the focus. So to make these policies transformational, we think that ECOLISE and its members are the best to give input and to influence EU policies by doing that. And I think the next slide will show you that the leader and community-led local development, they have basically principles which reflect and resonate also with ECOLISE members and membership. And I'm going to finish with the last slide. You can see that there are 3,000 local action groups existing. So what is interesting about this approach, it is bottom up, it has a structure, so it's the nodes are there, and it has a big fund of 10 billion euros in a 7-year period. It covers 60% of the rural population in the EU. So there is a structure, there is a method, and the thinking is to change the content. And that's basically the message. I think that's the last slide. If you're interested in this policy work, please contact us. So Amelie, who can't be with us today, Amelie Krug, policy officer, and me, we're very, very happy to get in touch with you, and just write us a mail and contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, I'm going to share briefly about the European Day of Sustainable Communities, this project. This is a day to celebrate sustainable communities, but we celebrate it throughout the month of September. And this year we will have a special focus on youth, as it's also the youth year for the European Union. And so this is a flagship event to really showcase all that is being done on the community-led organizations and initiatives. It's about making visible their work. It's about networking. It's about really inspiring other projects to follow, inspiring connections. And how it works, ECOLISE here as a role of supporting communication, mainly to support the promotion of the events, to support them having interesting visual communication and reaching this more European level of dissemination. And so what you can do if the website it's very straightforward. And anybody can create an event, and that event will appear on our website. We also work with, we have at the moment 10 national contact points, and you can also find them through the website. We have Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Scotland, Italy, Croatia. There's yes, I cannot remember more, but you can go and check in the website. And these national contact points, they support nationally their organizations and regionally. So yeah, I think that's it. Stop sharing. Back to you, Juan.
Okay, so thank you so much, Nina and Sarah. I would like to, before we go into the breakouts, I would like to ask briefly if any of our special guests would like to comment anything also on the presentations. If not, we will go to the breakouts.
Very quickly, I just couldn't hold myself to comment on the European Green Deal, because let's say from a structure perspective, one of the issues with the European Green Deal is that very much is laid upon efficiency and decoupling, mostly believing that we can carry on accumulating and creating economic growth while resting upon efficiency and technologies. And actually there's a lot of accent. The examples that you provided, Nina, in terms of the way ECOLISE links with them are excellent, but what's actually missing from that, and that's actually failure of the European Union, is very much to question the logic of growth and the whole idea that we can carry on burning the amount of coal and gas that we have, and just like not think about reducing the material throughput that's actually going in society and the energy. So yeah, this is an issue that a lot of colleagues from me from, let's say, the degrowth, post-growth scene are trying to engage and trying to transform and push through. And recently, actually, the European Environment Agency acknowledged that decoupling cannot be materialized. Exactly. So just I'm wondering whether you as ECOLISE actually engaging with some constructive critique with the European Green Deal in a way. Oh, if there's no time, perhaps we could engage with that in the room. So I don't know.
And Filka, I think what you're bringing right now is crucial, because of as Nina can explain maybe briefly before we go to the breakouts, these type of conversations are the ones that we want to have for the policy position that we want to create regarding the European Green Deal. So to bring that critical voice to the European Green Deal. So I don't know if Nina, because that was specifically in your presentation, if you want to comment briefly.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, we're planning to do a policy positioning process this year, and bringing the ECOLISE positions that have been done already into, let's say, engage in a conversation basically with the EU Green Deal, because this is the policy framework we have. This is in a permacultural sense the garden we find, and now I think working with this garden is crucial, and this includes pointing out, as Filka, as you said, the big white elephants. I'm not even sure if that's an English saying, but the growth is the biggest. Digitization is another. If we really introduce 5G in rural areas as it's planned, then it will eat all the savings that we have done. So yes, please contact us, and we will have a policy members hour on Monday at 5, and I'd love to see you there and discuss this in more depth there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Filka and Nina. I'm sorry, but I think we need to move to the breakouts to have at least a little bit of time in small groups. And I would invite you to continue these conversations there. Okay. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible with the time, but the time is there. We're running out of it. Thank you to everyone. And I think Laura is gonna send us to the breakouts.
Yeah, for how long do you want them for? We have 1:15 now.
It's not much. Unfortunately, we don't have more than, if we want to end of time, we don't have more than 12 minutes. Yeah.
12 minutes in the breakout.
Yeah, this is what it
Okay.
is if we want to end on time.
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, great. And so I'll
we
send
may
you off-
decide after that, we may decide to continue the conversation if we want, because I think it's very alive. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'll send you off in breakouts, rooms with each one of the guest speakers, and feel free to, bring in the questions and interests that you have, and maybe as a guiding question also to consider how we can work together for more transformative local action and find ways to collaborate. And any kind of tips, challenges, things that we can do to support each other.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you all also in the chat again. I did it at the beginning of the session, the presentation. Okay,
exactly.
That
so you will find slides in the presentation that are empty. I think it starts slide maybe 29. They're in a different background color, so you can see there are ones for room number 1, 2, 3. So you can just pick one and also put some notes in there. Okay.
So enjoy.
Then I'll open the rooms. Yes.
Okay, so everyone is coming back. And I always like to be very respectful with the time, but I'd like to ask to all of you if we could try to be a few more minutes just to do a proper closing of this session. Is that okay for you? Well, if not, of course you can go, but I think it will make it better. So the breakouts weren't too long, but I think they were very, very fruitful. And I like to hear maybe one voice from each group, just one insight from what you discussed, if possible. Whoever wants, maybe from group one. So
shall I?
Yeah, sure, if you want. Yes.
Okay, yeah, of course. Well, we came to the conclusion that it was important to persuade the municipality of your project by showing them a best practice, and also to inspire others with best practices. But it was also very important to have a municipality that is strong and that is supportive, and otherwise it's a really big problem.
Thank you, Ad. Let's go to the group 2. I don't know, Filka or anyone from the group.
I could just say that, for example, what stayed with me was how can we mobilize local actors to engage with different levels of policy, because what Miki was sharing is that she feels alone somehow with the acts of translating the local actions, local demands, local practices, local visions to, let's say, municipal level and then high European level. So that was kind of, we left it a little bit there. The challenges on the way of getting people involved in all levels of transformation, you know, bringing the local upwards, let's say, call it like that.
Thank you so much, Filka. Group 3, Cristiano, or anyone else from your group? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I can go. We just briefly explained what the local transformation toolkit is, more or less, because it's such a big thing that is not easy to synthesize. But it was just informative for the people, just to compare the way we do things normally and another way of doing that at local level.
And in one sentence, could you explain what the local transformation toolkit is?
Well, it's an operative system for a community to move from the way we do things to a real systemic way of doing things, with a lot of tools to do that really helps you to take it in a different way. But I know it's so not easy to grasp this way.
Thank you, Cristiano. I like if anyone has links to resources, like for example, what you just shared, Cristiano, or anyone, please, you can put in the presentation, okay? Because this will be shared with everyone. Also, the recording that will be shared with all of you at the end. So with this, we go to the closing, and I like to say that it has been. Okay, so Sarah just shared a link on the chat for this, that it has been a very, very rich conversation. Definitely it's something very complex, that it has many different parts, many different phases. I think it's clear for all of us that not any type of localization is good in itself. I mean, that we need to move towards localization, or to a different scale, working at a, let's say, appropriate scale, in a just an ecological way, that we need to connect the different scales. It's not enough to work at the local level without connection at regional, national, and international level, and the need of working at policy level too. And also that we need to find a way in which each of us work in these different levels. So this is for me part of the conclusions. And for me, it was very, very important, the voice that all of you brought, and probably specifically Filka, with the need of taking into account the diversity and the inclusion. Because here in this space, all of us, I'd say that we're very privileged. So, but that doesn't mean that we can't, in our small organization or initiatives, change everything, but to take that into account in the way we work is crucial too. So I'd like to pass it to my dear colleague, Sarah. She's going to share just a few ideas for next steps. And with that, we will close. So Sarah, please, over to you.
So yes, definitely follow us on our media, our channels, like newsletter and social media in general, and subscribe to we have a monthly newsletter that compilates always all the activity that is going on. So you can sign up through the website, be part of these sessions. And we have next Communities for Future session on the 14th of July on monitoring and evaluation, and it's quite exciting, the work that is being prepared, which is not usually a word that is an adjective for monitoring and evaluation, but come to this session so you understand better what I'm saying. And now I would like to ask you for a checkout again, to to give us what is your main take away from this session. And to that, you must have a link in the chat. Yes. Okay, just follow the link so we can see what is coming away for you from this session. Okay, inspiring words, enthusiasm, realism, very important. It's interesting. It's good that we have encouragement, enthusiasm, and realism at the same level. So that's really good, because we need to be realistic and at the same time have imagination and follow our enthusiasm, have positive examples. So have always this demonstrators idea behind it, and having this always available to share. Walk the talk, very important, linking skills, policy embeddedness, very important, and that's what we do at ECOLISE. Okay, I think this is good enough. Very inspiring word cloud. So I think this is it for today. It was a pleasure to be with you.
So thank you so much. You can also open your mic if you want to say goodbye.
And I'm also going to share the link to the next CFF session here in the chat.
Yeah, you can share it there.
I've shared it, Sarah.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Okay, I hope you really enjoyed this session as much as we did.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for organizing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye,
you.
Tommy.
Ciao.
It was very nice to
Ciao.
meet you here. I hope everything's going well.